Hello, everybody. Randy here. Now, I get these letters, and I printed this one out so I can read it to you whole here. But anyway, this email I received today was from a Phil Moore. Now, he is a writer for the Pomona Daily Review, and he talks about how he met Porky and Diogi at the gas company. Now, he starts off as the letter EIO press release. The day I met Porky and Diogi. Now, in the letter, he talks about how he went on his lunch break to go pay his gas bill, because it's just down the street from his office from the Pomona Daily Review. And so, it's just down the street there on 3rd Street in Locust. So, he just took a walk during his lunch break. Now, his letter says he was walking in, he looked in the window and said, just a few people, not too many, great. So anyway, he walked in, he got to the end of the line, he looked down, and he saw what appeared to him to be like a basset hound and a porcupine standing there in line. He said he was kind of speechless at first, So anyway, he goes on and says that the porky who found out, the porcupine who he found out later was named Porky, and same with the dog was Diogi. And he said that Porky just kind of turned around and glanced at him and turned around and kind of whispered something to the dog. And I could hear the dog said, Grant said, don't talk to strangers. So anyway, they both standing there. And then the dog goes, sardines. And the porcupine turned up and looked at her and says, no. He said, mushrooms. So then I kind of chuckled. And then the little porcupine turned around and looked at me again. And he kind of smiled at me. And, he said he introduced himself as, he goes, hi, I'm Phil Moore from, from Daily Review. I'm a writer. And the little porcupine turned around and said, oh, hi. The dog kind of nudged him, Diogi, And he says, yeah, my name's Porky, and this is my friend Diogi. We're here to pay the gas bill for rent. He said, oh, rent, huh? Yeah. And he asked, well, who's rent? He said, well, that's the guy that we live with. Oh, okay, cool. So then he goes, after he said he lives with Rand, they're going to go meet him over at the pizza place over on 2nd and Main Street. So, he's saying that Rand told him to go run his errand real quick and then he'll meet him over at the pizza place for pizza. So that's what they were talking about. They're arguing what they wanted on their pizza. Or not arguing, but talking about it. Joji wanted sardines and Porky wanted more mushrooms. So anyway, the line kind of moved up he was talking about. And he got to talking to him a little bit more. And they were saying how they live with Rand and they help him out with his wood toys. He calls them scrappy toys. And they help him put them together and stuff. So anyway, it was time for the dog and Diogi and Porky to go pay the bill. He said, next thing you know, the dog got on all fours, and Porky jumped on his back and kind of stretched a little bit with the envelope that he had in his hand and handed it to the teller. And she just smiled and gladly accepted it and then gave Porky a receipt. And then he jumped off Joji's back, and Joji got up and they started to walk out. And then he says, is there any way I could get a picture or get an interview with you and Ren? And then Porky turned around and says, well, I'll talk to Ren, but since we know where you work at, we can send you a picture of us. Ren doesn't like anybody taking pictures of us, He likes to have her own little private lives as possible. So, and then, he says, okay, that's cool. So then he says he walked up to the teller and looked, and she was smiling at him. Then he said he turned around as the Porky and Georgie kind of like ran out the door, and he says he looked at him. He walked up to the corner, and the dog and Georgie grabbed Porky's hand, and then he walked him across the street. And then once they got across the street there by the parking lot, then then he said they ran west towards Gary Avenue in front of the Mayfair Hotel, turned the corner, and then went north. It's nice to know that Dioge's keeping an eye on Porky, because that's what part of his job is. Glad to see he takes his hand when he crosses the street and stuff. So anyway, he turns around. He says he turned around to the teller, and the teller, she said, "Aren't they cute?" and then he says he turned around and he said to the teller, he goes, I heard of these two, but I thought it was just some old hippie's imagination. Well, I'll agree with the old, but the hippie, well, man. So anyway, she goes, yeah. She stated that they live with Ram, and like Porky said, they help him out around the house with toys that he makes for the kids at the Doll Art Gallery. He says Red makes these toys for free, and then he gives them for the kids. And Phil, he was just kind of speechless. He says in his letter, because like he said, he thought it was just a story, but to see them in person, he said that's something else. So anyway, Phil asked me if he could have permission to come by and do an interview with Porky and myself and Dioge. Well, Phil, as much as I really like to, but Porky and Dioge, I try to let them have as normal life as possible. Every once in a while, like the day you saw them, I'll have them go run an errand, like pay the gas bill or the phone bill or, something like that, or, take my camera, or, take some pictures. But, yeah, other than that, they kind of like it the way it is. They do get exposure, on my website, images of Pomona, blogspot.com. But other than that, they just kind of like to keep a low profile and, have their own life if possible. But anyway, well, thanks anyway for the, for the email and stuff, because, like I said, I always like to know how they're behaving out there in the city, up in downtown Pomona, when I send them on errands. Because sometimes that Porky, he can be a character. And that's why he got Dioge there, to keep him in line. So I'm glad to see that, Dioge's doing the job and Porky's behaving. But anyway, yeah, it was good, to hear that, like I said, Georgie's keeping an eye on him, like, for instance, crossing the street. Porky's only 9 years old, so, he's still young. He's a kid. And Dioge, well, he's a little older, a few years older, but not that much. So anyway, okay, I just want to share this letter with you, from Phil Moore, from the Pomona Daily Review. Oh, how you like that? Cool. But sorry, Phil. Like I said, I like to, have their own little private lives here, and all that good stuff. So, but anyway, thanks for the letter, and I'll read it on my website here. Okay, great. Okay, like always, if anything else should come up, like another sighting of Porky and Dioge, I'll get back with you. But again, like always, you take care, and you take care of those ones you love. And remember, you keep the faith, and faith will keep you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.